Well, good evening. Today's been a huge day if you care about immigration, both legal and illegal. And earlier on, Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, announced a raft of at least very tough-sounding measures that have drawn opposition from all of the usual suspects. Just to summarise a couple of those, of course, things like stripping the assets from asylum seekers who land on British shores and making them pay for their own accommodation, ramping up deportations for families, including children, as well, scrapping the legal duty to support asylum seekers as well, so things like cutting their benefits and all of that stuff. There was a heck of a lot to go at, and massively extending the amount of time that it would take for someone to be given settled status in Britain, way up to like 20 years, right? OK, so what Christopher Hope, our political editor, decided to do was sit down with the Home Secretary herself. Here is that interview with Shabana Mahmood.
Shabana Mahmood, thank you for joining us for your first interview on GB News. You said something shocking, I thought, in the House of Commons chamber tonight. You addressing a question from a white Lib Dem MP. You said, "I wish I had the privilege of walking around the country and not seeing the division that the issue of migration and asylum system is creating across this country. Unlike him," you said, "unfortunately, I'm the one who's regularly called an effing P word and told to go back home. It is I who knows through my personal experience and that of my constituents just how divisive the issue is of asylum in our country." Are you sick of well-meaning white people not addressing the issue of immigration because they can't walk in your shoes?
Well, look, the point I was making in the chamber and the argument that I will be making all over the country is I can see that this issue is dividing people across our country. It is not an issue just of white people rejecting migration or asylum seekers. I see my own constituents deeply worried about the community tensions and a system that is out of control and is unfair. So the concern about migration is something that is shared by British people of every background and every ethnicity in this country. And I think that that should be acknowledged, because you have to acknowledge what people are thinking. It's wrong to say people feel that way when it's actually true. They are responding to facts. They can see a broken system because the system is in fact broken. The pace and scale of change that we have seen has put communities under pressure. And I think it is the job of politicians, mainstream politicians, to come up with answers to the problems that the public rightly see are happening in this country. And it's my job, therefore, to fix this broken system.
And face that head on, which I've never seen a Home Office Secretary do in the way you did tonight. And it was tremendously powerful. You talked about the Green Party being absolute hypocrites because they talk great language in this chamber and then they oppose asylum accommodation. You're tired, are you then, of politicians who fight your controls on migration and then don't want the results of uncontrolled migration in their areas?
Look, I think there are some people in politics today who think you can either ignore the problem and just assert that it's not there and that somehow it's made up, it's misinformation, fake news, and if you just don't talk about it, it will somehow go away. There are others who will speak the language of inclusion and support for diversity, which I also agree with, but who will then not look to any solutions for the problems that we face. So they will shut down any possible solution and then therefore they are hypocrites because they have nothing else to offer. What I am offering is a genuine set of proposals that can fix the broken system that we have and retain public consent for us having an asylum system at all. That is the way that I think sensible mainstream politicians should approach these issues, because we can see the problems they're causing in our communities and it's our job to fix it.
You talk of the pale and the scarcity of change, destabilising communities. Are you worried about civil unrest unless you can get these changes and make them stick?
I mean, I think we've seen some civil unrest already in our countries. I know that we regularly see protests outside hotels. I think there have been some near misses on attacks on hotels. I think all of that move towards disorder and violence is deplorable and is completely unacceptable. And I would expect all of our people to obey the law of our land, and it will always be enforced. But what I can see happening is division. Anger and resentment can turn to hate. It's a human frailty. And I can see this happening in our country. It's my job to stop that drift towards hate, to offer people solutions that can work, that can dissipate the anger and the resentment they're feeling, and that can build their public confidence in having an asylum system, and also unlocking what I believe is the true generosity of the British people, because we will always want to help those who are truly in need.
Absolutely, absolutely. How do you stop these so-called, in quotes, experts, lefty lawyers, maybe your own backbenchers, 16 of them already attacking your plans from unpicking what you're trying to do?
Well, look, I think politics is about making an argument. That's what I did in the House today. Not everybody will agree, but I think what we did see in the House today was wide support from my colleagues sitting behind me for these proposals. I believe that wide support is there in the Parliamentary Labour Party, it's there in the Labour Party, and I believe, more importantly, it's there in the country. That is what I think will make sure that these reforms are realised, and ultimately it will be my job to make sure I can implement these reforms and deliver for the British people.
How can we judge your success? 45,000 came here legally in 2022, you know the numbers off by heart, 29,000 in 2023, 36,000 last year, pushing 50,000 maybe this year, maybe not as much as that. What does success look like? Will those numbers come down next year and going forward?
Look, I want to implement these reforms as quickly as possible. I want to reduce the pull factors that are persuading people to get into
we know
those
all that.
boats.
How do we judge your success? Numbers?
Judge me on delivery. Judge me on delivery. I want to get those boat crossings down. I'm not going to set arbitrary numbers.
But they will fall next year.
I want to see them fall. Of course I do, as we implement these reforms. I would say to your viewers and to people across the country, judge us on the totality of the reforms once they're being implemented. I believe the combination of these reforms and our law enforcement activity can fix this problem and can bring those numbers down.
If they don't work, you'll go further. You pull back from ECHR withdrawal, which of course is what Reform and the Tories are doing. Other ideas you could push too?
Well, look, I will always, of course, keep under review whether these measures are working as they should, but we've announced the set of proposals today.
Yep.
We've now got to consult and bring forward legislation. That will be the next stage, and then we've got to crack on with delivery as well.
GB News viewers watching this, listening to this, will be frustrated. You're not saying numbers will come down. You hope they will. You can't say it.
Look, I know it's a low trust environment, right? I know that people will say that we've heard all of this before. I get that. I know there's a lot of cynicism about it. It's justified. So I'm not telling your viewers that they are wrong to feel or think as they do. Just judge us on our record. We are bringing forward new reforms. We've already massively increased law enforcement activity and general enforcement activity in this country. We've seen 1,000 people removed as a result of the raids that we have been carrying out. We will keep going on that enforcement activity. I will bring these reforms forward. Judge us on our record and on our delivery.
It's been 16 months to get to this point. We've been through one Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper. Now you're in post. Why is the government sleptwalk into this point now? Why is the urgency, which you definitely are showing in the House of Commons today and tonight on GB News, why has that been lacking so far?
Well, I would disagree with that because, look, since we've been in government, we inherited an almighty mess in the immigration system from the Conservative Party. Decision-making was through the floor. They'd just basically given up on governing altogether.
Well, they thought Rwanda was a silver bullet, didn't they?
They did, and there are no silver bullets here. It's a range of measures. It's a range of strategies.
They think there are. They think there are silver bullets.
I think they're wrong. I think they haven't learned the lesson of their time in government either. But we are learning the lessons of their failures. And my predecessor's Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, she got this system back up and running again. And she started fixing its foundations, and now it's on me to keep going with that programme of reform.
Where does it leave one in, one out, which has been widely mocked for being lots out, lots in? Where are you with that? Is that still happening?
It is still happening.
And you believe in it?
I do believe in it. I think it is the right way to, again, send a message, change the calculus of the people in the north of France that are looking to get on a boat, that they're wasting their money because they can be returned to France. And actually, the person that was deported and came back in and deported again proves the point. This is a bad business model. People shouldn't waste their money
He's
on
now
it.
four grand down, isn't he, on those two trips?
He's lost his money twice over. He should never have made that decision in the first place.
ID cards will help you tackle illegal migration too?
I believe that the move to digital ID and the loopholes that we're closing in the borders bill as well on the right to work checks will clamp down on illegal working.
And just finally, I've got to ask you about the new chair for the grooming gangs inquiry. We're still waiting for that to be appointed. How about Louise Casey?
Well, Louise Casey is supporting the government in getting the inquiry
knows victims, doesn't she?
She does, and she has a huge amount of trust, but that's why she's the right person to help us get the inquiry up and running.
And when will we see a new chair?
Look, I have been honest with people. I think it's going to take us a little bit of time, but I can reassure all of your viewers and people across the country, we will not lose focus on what the grooming gang inquiry is all about. It will remain absolutely on course to deliver what it should do. It's just taking us a bit of time to find the right chair to lead it.
Shabana Mahmood, thank you for joining us on GB News. Let's talk to you again in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, well, lots to pick the bones out of there. I just want to reference a couple of clips that Christopher mentioned. This is when Shabana Mahmood made reference to being called an effing P in the House of Commons.
to say to the honourable gentleman, I wish I had the privilege of walking around this country and not seeing the division that the issue of migration and asylum system is creating across this country. Unlike him, unfortunately, I am the one that is regularly called and told to go back home. It is I who knows through my personal experience and that of my constituents just how divisive the issue of asylum has become in our country. And I do say to him, I wish it were possible to say that there isn't a problem here, that there's nothing to see and that it is all in fact just extremist right-wing talking points. But this system is broken.
So that was in response to one of the people that, by the way, I, politically speaking anyway, despise most in this country, which is the so-called well-intentioned, lovely, fluffy Liberal Democrats who just are an absolute nightmare when it comes to this stuff, as are, of course, the Greens, who seem to want refugees absolutely everywhere, apart from where they actually live. And this is what happened when Carla Dennew, I believe, was she the former leader, co-leader of the Greens, deputy leader, whatever it was. It doesn't really matter when it comes to the Greens, does it? Here is what Shabana Mahmood had to say to her earlier.
Does the Secretary of State understand that attempting to out-reform reform is actually just boosting this baseless far-right narrative and will only deepen divisions when we urgently need leadership and hope instead?
Let me tell her, I couldn't care less what any other political party has to say about these matters. I don't care what other politicians are saying on the television. I don't care what other activists are saying either. I care about the fact that I have an important job to do and I can see that there is a problem here that needs to be fixed. If it was possible to pretend there wasn't a problem because there wasn't one, I wouldn't be saying there is one. There is a genuine problem in this asylum system.
OK, obviously she then goes on to say to Carla Dennew that she's not going to take lessons from the Greens because in their constituencies they don't seem to want these asylum things, which got Carla Dennew very, very angry. But you heard there from the Greens, it's all the language of the far right. Well, step forward Zara Sultana, who actually said the F word. No, not that one. Fascism.
Seizing valuables belonging to asylum seekers, making refugees wait 20 years before they can apply to settle permanently, and deporting entire families, including children, who have built new lives here because their country of origin is deemed safe. These measures are straight out of the fascist playbook. The Home Secretary has described herself as a child of immigrants, so I ask her, is she proud to introduce measures that punish and persecute desperate and vulnerable people seeking sanctuary? And how does it feel to kick away the ladder and be praised by fascist Tommy Robinson?
Well, there we go. Oh, look, there's loads more we could play you. We're going to get stuck into this now. Carol, I was just saying, that over the course of the show, I've got progressively more angry about this, actually, because it is people like Shabana Mahmood who have opposed pretty much every single attempt to control legal immigration, sitting cross-legged on a Greek beach, waving in and welcoming illegal migrants onto European soil, and then here we are today with her saying there's an existential problem to Britain, there's division everywhere, and we need to take urgent measures. Well, we only need to take these measures because of the politics of people like her historically.
I have to say, listening to her there, she's impressive, you know. This was an impressive speech. And I didn't have any time for it before, and I'm starting to think, does she actually mean this? But we all know these measures are never going to get pushed through. She knows that, we know that. You can see just from what Labour politicians are saying tonight. She said there, she made a very big mistake. She said, judge me on delivery. Well, delivery is not going to be, if at all, for the next 1 to 2 years. And if the proposals go through, they'll be very much watered down. So, yes, we will judge her on delivery. I very much hope every single thing she has laid out today does happen. But it's not going to happen because we have a bunch of Labour MPs who talk about division in this country, not realising that the division is happening because nothing is being done about illegal immigration and that people are, white Brits taking to the streets. Actually, it's not just white Brits, actually. It's all colours of Brits taking to the streets, actually saying enough is enough. You've got Shabana Mahmood, the daughter of immigrants, not illegal, it has to be said, legal immigrants, and she is saying it's enough. And it is enough. And, what's his name last week? Talked about, Streeting, the man who wears Streeting, said last week there is a rising tide of racism in this country. No, there isn't. There's a rising tide of Britishness in this country because people see our cultures and our values being eroded by these hordes of people who are coming here from sub-Saharan Africa.
The reality that we've now arrived at, Sajay, is that a Labour Home Secretary of Pakistani heritage is being called a fascist and appealing to, Nazi sentiments because she wants to clamp down on this. Do you wish that your lot hadn't bothered to even entertain, trying to appease remotely people on the left? Because it turns out, doesn't it, that you just can't. You should have just clamped on.
So I was always pressing the Conservative Party when I was in government to go much further. In fact, I was one of the few Conservative MPs who repeatedly called for us to leave the ECHR several years ago, by the way, before it was fashionable. I think all Conservatives are meant to call for that these days. I just think that the challenge of this, and I go back to her sort of battle cry, judge me on my record, is it's not going to come in for a couple of years. It's not going to be retrospective. So this problem is going to get worse. You will see a rush of people across the Channel who want to get over and be governed by the existing laws. These may be more strict laws that are going to be brought in. Of course, the government can make laws retrospective. If you're a Northern Ireland veteran, they're making that retrospective back to the 1960s, so you can be prosecuted under laws which don't exist.
Yes.
But for these asylum laws, they're not going to make it retrospective. So we'll have lots of people come in. And the final point I'd make to Shabana Mahmood and the Labour Party, if she is right, and this is what we need to keep our country safe, and they are unable to get it through Parliament without watering it down, surely they will have a general election and let the British people decide. If we need this, we cannot allow backbench Labour MPs to block it.
So, Benjamin, you were against Rwanda, weren't you? Completely against it. So are you in favour of sending people back to Syria now? And are you in favour of these third country hubs that Shabana Mahmood is proposing today?
Well, the question of sending someone who's from Syria to Syria, which has quite miraculously become a much safer country, is clearly fair and completely different to the idea of sending someone to a country they have no link or association with, like Rwanda, at the cost of hundreds of millions of pounds. I would say on what we've just seen there, Zara Sultana, I don't think anybody needs lessons on fascism from her, something that the people of Gaza live under with Hamas, and yet she doesn't seem to be able to use the F word to describe their situation. And if anything, and this is what we saw from that interview with Shabana Mahmood, she knows what division and what racism and what anger looks like, because quite regrettably is what she describes experiencing, and I suspect especially her parents who moved here. And so she knows this has to be fixed.
Well, it's also what the victims, can I just say, it's also what the victims of the Pakistani rape gangs felt as well. They were targeted because they were white girls. So in Shabana Mahmood's plans here, she apparently is going to get very strict on some countries like Angola, Namibia and the Democratic Republic of Congo. If they don't accept foreign criminals back, their criminals back, we will remove their visa status. Why is she not doing it to Pakistan?
Well, she says herself, you'll judge it on the actions, and clearly, a few hours after the first paper is announced, we don't know exactly how that will plan out. But I always think with politicians, judge them on what they do when they're in power rather than what they say when they're peddling opposition. And she is using the power so far to try and solve the problem that people are asking to be solved.